Former Trump defense attorney and nominee for Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche grilled today about his independence from the president amid fears of purges at both the DOJ and FBI. His Senate confirmation hearings included questions over the Justice Department's efforts to get information on those FBI agents who worked on January 6th cases.
According to the memos that I've read that have now become public, it's to better understand what went wrong. Because in President Trump's view, something went wrong in that investigation.
Something went wrong in the Capitol, too.
It's not a purge. It's not firing agents. It's collecting information so that what happened doesn't happen again.
Joining us, NBC's Sahil Kapoor from Capitol Hill. Christy Greenberg is former SDNY Criminal Division Deputy Chief, former federal prosecutor, and an MSNBC legal analyst. Sahil, how else did the Trump administration's current efforts kind of intersect with the questions that face Todd Blanche today?
Hey, Chris. Well, it certainly is a factor that Mr. Blanche is best known for being President Trump's personal criminal defense attorney against the charges that he's faced in recent years. Republicans, for the most part, weren't bothered by this. They defended him, including the chairman of this committee, Chuck Grassley, said he's no partisan, that he's a serious lawyer who's worked at prestigious law firms. Democrats were more skeptical. That was one of several themes that piqued their interest, this personal and professional relationship. I spoke to Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, a senior Democrat on this committee. He said there's a genuine risk that relationship will color Blanche's responsibilities to the department if he's confirmed as Deputy Attorney General. He did say that Blanche talked a good game about how politics will play no role, about his reverence for the department's traditions, but he said he worries that when Trump-sensitive questions come up, no one at the FBI or the DOJ, in the senator's view, will have the backbone to say no to these political demands. Now, what's behind this? Democrats vividly remember the way Donald Trump turned against former AG Jeff Sessions when he recused himself from the Russia probe and appointed Bob Mueller, the way he turned against Bill Barr for refusing to endorse his false claims about a stolen election in late 2020. There was also this exchange between Senator Adam Schiff, a new member of this committee, and Blanche. Let's play it.
Will you recuse yourself from overseeing the January 6th case, the Mar-a-Lago case, and the Alvin Bragg case? Will you recuse yourself from the working group's supervision of those investigations?
I will follow the rules as told to me by the experts, career prosecutors in the department when it comes to every recusal.
I've heard that.
But it's true.
Well, it may be true in the abstract.
No, it's not abstract. It's true.
And beyond that, Chris, Mr. Blanche refused to defend the assault of law enforcement officers on that day, on January 6th. He said it should never be tolerated. That, of course, is a departure from President Trump, who did pardon those people. Chris.
All right, so, Christy, you know Todd Blanche, and he was asked point blank if the deputy AG is the president's lawyer, and he said no. But how might that be put to the test if he's confirmed?
Well, it was already put to the test today, because I agree with Senator Schiff that Todd Blanche sounded a whole lot more like Donald Trump's lawyer than he did the people's lawyer. And in his statement to Senator Grassley, he identified 4 areas where he believed that the DOJ had previously engaged in misconduct that he said was a travesty of justice. And all 4 of the items that he mentioned were all arguments that he made as Donald Trump's defense attorney. None of which, by the way, were actual misconduct, and all of which were incredibly misleading. For example, he said that the special counsel's office wouldn't let Donald Trump review evidence in the Mar-a-Lago case. Totally misleading, not true. Initially, there was an argument about where classified information could be reviewed. At no point did the prosecutors say that he couldn't review the evidence in his own case. That's a preposterous statement. You know, they argued as an example of misconduct that the special counsel proposed a trial date 5 days after the indictment in the D.C. case. Obviously not misconduct. I mean, if this is what the weaponization working group is going to be looking at, it's laughable. And it was notable to me that he would not say, in response to questions from Senator Schiff, that he would not have any role with respect to cases where he was Donald Trump's personal lawyer. This is pretty black and white. You don't need an ethics expert to tell you that if you represented the president personally in cases that now the Department of Justice is going to take a look at, you had a role in those cases, you need to recuse yourself. That's pretty basic. Don't need an ethics expert. He refused to say the words. So there's every reason from his statements at this hearing to be very concerned and to believe that really he is just there to execute Donald Trump's orders.
This hearing does come a day after we heard President Trump openly attack judges who have ruled against his policies, against his orders. Let me play that.
It seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. And we want to weed out the corruption. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that. Well, so maybe we have to look at the judges, because that's a very serious, I think it's a very serious violation.
We are still waiting for any evidence at all, Christy, to prove any of the corruption that both President Trump and Elon Musk have suggested. But when he says, so maybe we have to look at the judges, what could that mean in real world terms?
I mean, it's really hard to say. I don't know what you would look at. You would look at their orders in the case and whether or not there was any legal basis for the orders that they gave. I would say, at least with respect to one of those orders, with respect to the DOJ case, that's a case that's an order that came down from an SDNY judge that I've appeared before many times, District Court Judge Paul Engelmeyer. You're not going to find a smarter or harder working judge. So I'm not sure what investigation that Elon Musk has proposed to do into Judge Engelmeyer, but have at it. He's a straight arrow. I mean, these are judges who are just doing their jobs. So it seems almost more designed to intimidate judges and potentially put them at risk. When you make statements and you put judges' names out there, we know judges get threats. We know judges have issues with respect to their own safety. And so you really wonder, what would an investigation really look like if there's a legally sound order? And is this really meant to, fan the flames around these judges? And that's something even Justice Roberts has said. There is no place for attacks and threats against judges' safety. And that, unfortunately, I think, is what we're going to see with this kind of rhetoric.
Sahil Kapoor and Christy Greenberg, thank you both.